and welcome to my very first instructional video on how you can get the best and set up your worm world. Now, worms are those sort of creatures that we all take for granted. They're under our very feet, and yet they're so vital to the structure of the soil and therefore our vegetable production, our crop production, the flowers in our garden, the colour of our lawn. Worms are there working away, toiling away below our very feet. Yet they're so easy to take for granted because of where they live. So this little kit will hopefully give you a little window into their world. So let's get on with it. This is the kit, this is how it arrives, and you know it's the genuine article because it's got a little picture of me there in the corner, and if you open it up you'll find that it's got lots of bits in there. We've got a little instruction manual with loads of information about worms and of course detailed instructions on how to set it up if you're not lucky enough to have found this video. So I suggest you get everything out of the bag so you can see what you've got. So there's the sand, these are the end stoppers, and this is the main thing. This is the main course. This is the wormery itself. We'll work out how to get in there. All beautifully packaged, of course, by my friends at Interplay. Incidentally, this isn't one of those shallow sort of endorsements. This is a kit that I've very much been involved with designing and helping and working closely with Interplay to come up with the very best that we can for the budget. So there we are. This is the wormery itself. Now it doesn't look like much, but this is a beautiful thing. There we are, look at that. It is pretty much a tank. It's a very narrow tank and there's a reason for that. It's got little air holes at the top there and it's got a lid that comes off eventually, like that. So what we've got to do basically is first of all create a habitat for our worms. So what we want to do is get some soil. It's the one thing that doesn't come with this kit. You have to find your own soil. Now you can do this in many ways. I find molehills, go down the park or into the fields and find a molehill because moles tend to throw up a really nice fine soil, a nice fine tilth. We've got some here. I didn't have a molehill. I sent my wife out with a sieve and a spade and she's dug it up and she's sieved it with a garden sieve and it's nice soil. It's a little bit dry but I'll show you how to rectify that later. So first things first is literally start filling your wormery with some of your fine garden soil. Obviously I'm making a complete mess here. If you want to be a tidier you can use a funnel, of course, a big funnel. The reason I'm doing it outside is so that I can make as much mess as I like and it doesn't upset anybody. There we are. So about 2 centimetres in the bottom of the tank. I'm just checking with my wife because we have arguments about this all the time. So is that 2 centimetres, dear? Yes, about right. Okay, so we have 2 centimetres of soil in the tank. So that's the first layer of soil. So next stage is to add a layer of sand, or you can do any colour you like. This is where you can be creative. So I'm just going to put some regular sand in. Now it's very important that I now put that in all the way around, all the way along, so it's nice and even. Creates a little stripe in the soil, and you'll see why this is quite important. Well, it's not important, but it shows you the activities of the worms within. So I'll give it a little shake around like that. Looks nice, doesn't it? And then what we'll do is add a bit more soil. So now we've got a nice stripe of sand on top of the soil, and really that's it. We just repeat this process over and over again until you're about 2, maybe 3 centimetres from the very top of the tank. So okay, so there we are. You've got your wormery set up. It doesn't matter if the lines aren't straight, the worms aren't that bothered. So that's pretty much the habitat created. Now, importantly is to have it nice and moist, that soil. Having soil too dry is a surefire way to make your worms feel very uncomfortable indeed. Moisture is critical, but not so wet that when you squeeze the soil, water drips out. It just needs to be damp enough. So if, like mine, your soil is a little bit dry, add a little bit of water. You can do this at any stage, but I'm just going to water that in, just a little bit of water in my watering can here, and that will soak down. And part of the regular maintenance of your wormery is to keep watering it as long as you've got worms in there. So that's now soaking down, and I can keep adding water as and when. So there we are. All we have to do now is add the worms. An animal like this is Lumbricus terrestris. This is the good old night crawler, as they call him in America. And we're going to pop him into the top of your wormery. In fact, I've got a whole bunch of different varieties, some out the compost heap, some from in the allotment, some from the garden, and I'm just going to pop them all in there. So before I actually close the wormery up, I'm just going to add a few leaves to add to the soil surface, and this is what the worms will feed on. So they're in there now. I'll add a little bit more water. This is rainwater, by the way, not tap water. So there we go, there's a bit more water in there now. It'll take probably an hour or two to settle down. I'll put the lid on so they don't crawl out. I'll put my feet onto my wormery. Should have maybe done that earlier on, but hey, that's me, doing things back to front. There's no real rules. Stop it! Look, they fit perfectly. It's nice and tight, well engineered they are. I'm trying to find out. There's actually a little groove. All right, if you look carefully, I just remembered now. There's a little groove on your wormery there, and that matches up with the little tiny gripper on the legs there. So you see that little groove there? And I'm just going to line that up with the groove in the leg, and look, it just pops on effortlessly. And there we've got it, your wormery. It's all finished, it's complete. The best way to speed up them settling down is to, in fact it's a good rule actually, is whenever you're not actually looking at your worms, if you're not studying them, make it nice and dark for them, because they don't like the light generally. So let's put this as a little baffle, comes with a kit, and it just slides down over the wormery and makes it nice and dark, just like in nature. And on the front of this, just in case you're wondering, there's a little reminders to how where to keep your wormery and how to look after them. And you can probably keep your worms in here for a month or so without any trouble at all. But as soon as you finish studying them, of course, release your worms back into your garden. And if you want any more ideas on species of worm, how to identify all the different kinds, how to really get into worms, how to make compost with worms, there's plenty other links on this page. So just follow those and they'll take you to where you want to be. I've got plenty of books and recommended reading if you want to really get into your worms. But for now, from me, that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed watching me clown around with soil in a wormery, and hopefully you'll get the most out of your very own worm world.